Welcome to another live stream, my friends. Once again, we saw a Bitcoin pump overnight, and earlier in the day, to perfectly test resistance, I mapped out in advance in the private Telegram yesterday. This is basically the same setup I had mapped out and even mentioned on stream the previous swing. So we will see what happens, guys. Obviously, it doesn't need to play out the same, especially now that we are into the weekend trading hours. But I hit 3 of my 4 laddered entries with an average entry of 88,809 US dollars. We hit my first TP at 87.1K, slightly front running the 0.5 fib target. So if the rest gets stopped out, at least that cushion will soften the blow. Honestly, the resistance is very slightly higher on the micro 4-hour trend here. You can see I have my fib pulled just slightly different, and then even stronger resistance above that. But so far, this is the 5-minute setup that I'm still running with 2/3 of my position, hoping to hit that 214 target, and well, beyond would be even better. As I mentioned, VIPs had my plans laid out well in advance for this setup. So for those of you interested in seeing more examples of how I'm looking at the market, much like these beautiful trades over the last few days, some of my trade setups, some of my favorite strategies, and so on, my partners at BloFin are currently running this new promo for my followers. So be sure to scan the QR code on the poster here or the one that I just had up. If that is something that interests you, because my partners at BloFin currently giving my followers this special promo. And if you sign up using my link or my QR code here, that also gets you into future promos from them, and as well the free VIP access into my Telegram channel. So with that, guys, just basically starting on the 5-minute here. Like I said, basically the way I was looking at this is basically that we had this low, we have a lower low. That means this is our new high on the trend, kind of a thing. That's why I had my fib pulled here. And that's why I've been laddering into my position. Like I mentioned, and like the screenshot showed, I was basically looking to ladder in. I ended up hitting 3 of my 4 entries. I still had another one at 90,111 US dollars. Never ended up hitting. And since we hit my first target, I actually removed that order for now. And we're just going to have to see what happens from here. But like I said, the 4-hour, the structure is slightly different. It is still even a little bit higher than that. And my reasoning for that is just basically because of this micro trend on the 4-hour is our support would have been, here was our low, and this would have been where we set our lower low. So this wick up here, that would be our confirmed lower high on the trend, basically. So that's why I have a fib pulled from there. So you can see that my entry is actually just a little bit below the 786 there on the 4-hour. And as well, I still have 20% of my position running up here from 92,462 approximately, actually 61.8. But I shared that one live as well, you guys. So just a beautiful trend. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but Bitcoin has been very, very healthy the last couple of months. And I don't mean healthy from a price perspective, but from, as traders, from a charting perspective, just how well, when we break structure to the downside, then we get our resistance retests. Everything has been acting very predictably. Resistance doing resistance things isn't something that we should be blaming manipulation for. We should be celebrating that the charts are reacting the way they're supposed to, and it makes it very predictable and very easy to trade. Honestly, the last couple months I've found to be some of the easiest trading that I've had in Bitcoin in probably a couple of years. I know, like I said, unpopular opinion, but it is what it is. If you just don't have a bias, because obviously, yeah, I would love my spot bags to go parabolic. I would absolutely love that. But my trading account, I just look at things with an unemotional bias. I enter trades based on systematic trade strategies that I've back tested. And therefore, that's how I trade. I don't trade on gut feelings. I don't trade tweets. I don't trade announcements. I trade charts, not tweets. StuTube. Copyright. But yeah, guys, like I said, we just still have resistance up ahead. That being said, obviously not all hope is lost. I mean, I have these support levels mapped out a little bit lower. So even if we go a little bit lower, it's possible that we find a nice actual springboard off some of our support levels, which are actually down closer to 84K, even a little bit lower. And basically the swing fail zone for me runs all the way to about 78.4K. So there is still support below us. But to completely ignore the red flags, I'm not into that. And basically, as I've been saying for a while now, unless we end up smashing through that 95K resistance, my red box here, I mean, I haven't changed this basically since we bottomed back here in the middle of November. This range has not changed. My red box here has been the same because we haven't broken the highs. Well, I shouldn't say that. We did get wicks above, but we never invalidated the 115 for a typical fib pull for how I like to look at things. So we still haven't broke out of that range to the upside above my red box. We haven't broke to the downside below my green box. So the range remains unfazed for me, and therefore I am just continuing to play the downtrend for now. Obviously, eventually it's going to break. Eventually, I am going to take a loss on one of these swing positions because the trend will break and people are going to make fun of me and saying that, haha, you got wrecked, you lost a trade. Every trader loses trades. But you know what? The people who are doing that likely are trying to catch the knife the entire way to the downside, and we have been absolutely crushing this. So if we take one loss, I don't care. That's a part of trading, and that's a part of invalidations, because every trader loses trades. That's totally fine. It's about, trading isn't about winning every trade. It's about controlling losses just as much, right? To keep a level head in this space. So guys, for those of you who do appreciate my level-headed approach and just looking at market structure for what it is and trading the charts for what they are rather than the emotional gut feelings out there, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bringing up the trend master here. On the 4-hour, we still have this resistance. Like I mentioned earlier, you guys, well, in the last couple of streams that we had MDX Trendmaster resistance up around 90K as well. So you can see we just kind of got that wick above, and so far that resistance is holding as well. So just a little bit of confluence there. Again, we could end up breaking out. That's fine if I end up taking a little bit of a loss on this, but so far it's, yeah, we're getting a bit of a bounce here, but actually something catching my eye right now, you guys, just to really microanalyze things here and just to show you another reason why I'm not quite updating my stop loss yet, is even on the 5-minute trend, we have another STUBER fib loading if we go just a little bit higher. My reasoning for that is basically we had these highs. Actually, we had another higher high here. That would have confirmed this as our higher low. You know what? Let's just use this level because it's the easiest to see right now. So let's just go something like this. We had this sideways trading range here. We ended up pushing higher. Lowest point between the two right here. Therefore, we broke that micro uptrend on the 5-minute. So let's pull a fib from our pivot point, and we would now have a new STUBER fib, which starts basically right where my current average entry is, right? So this setup would show resistance basically from 88.8K to 89.8K. And basically invalidation for me would be above 90K for that kind of a setup. Just to look for confluence on that. Let's see if some indicators point anything obvious out here. First of all, the trend master, I think I noticed right before streaming, there was actually a higher buy signal, which could be problematic for the short. Yeah, so there is technically a higher buy signal. Sell signals, yeah, they're pretty much in line. I always go by naked market structure first, and then going for indicator confluence second. So, this is a bit of a warning here, the fact that we have this higher buy signal, that we could be starting a bit of an uptrend here. So if that's the case, we invalidate this STUBER fib, I get stopped out on the rest of my position, so be it, right? And then likely tomorrow, we'll probably just end up trading sideways. We've had sideways Saturdays for the last month or two at this point. So I don't really expect too much volatility tomorrow, but then I would expect it to pick up Sunday a few hours before the weekly candle close again. But so let's get rid of the trend master here. I also want to bring up the ALGO master to see what the auto STUBER fibs are saying, see what AI thinks about a fib pull. And you can see that the ALGO master auto STUBER fibs are lining up with my fib pull absolutely perfectly. So that's just a little bit of added confluence again for this much smaller STUBER fib setup on the 5-minute, right? So just more confluence that there is potential resistance there. So one big warning for me would be, as I mentioned, that higher buy signal on the trend master. Basically, this would be our pivot point where we found that support. Oh, let me make that pink just so it matches up with that buy signal. And let's just remove the fibs right now, just looking at the trend master. Basically, this is where we got our pivot. And then ended up printing that higher buy signal. So if we end up losing this support at about 86.8K, that's where I think we're going back down to retest the bottom of this range and maybe even further, right? And so at that point, I would be expecting us to drop basically to at least the 786, which would be, let's even call it, let's give it $100 for front running, but call it 85.5K would be the start of potential support. I by no means would be bullish on that, but I would be looking at taking more profits off my shorts basically, because a buy level is a buy level. Whether or not I'm bullish, I will still be looking to buy, which would obviously close some of my shorts, right? But in that case, I'd have a hard time being bullish, although a bounce would be possible, just because we would be losing that trend of higher buy signals in that case. So that would be a sign of weakness, in my opinion. Looking at the MDX long short indicator here, you can see that shorts have been climbing aggressively today. And that's exactly why the price ended up pumping, right? Basically, the price does the opposite of what retail traders do. So as soon as they started shorting, building short positions, we started climbing basically. But let's zoom into the hourly and see if we can see anything way more obvious or anything like that. At this point, kind of hard to tell. It does look like the longs are starting to bounce a little bit, but it does look like the shorts have been, well, let's treat it just like market structure, right? The shorts have been setting higher highs. So if retail continues building these short positions because they've finally given up on long in this market, then I think it's absolutely possible that that could be rocket fuel and it could actually break us through some of those 4-hour resistance levels. But as it stands, we still haven't done that. The weekly chart still looks the exact same. Like I've been saying for a while now, the current market structure looks very similar to how we topped last cycle. Obviously doesn't have to play out the same. I don't know if the market makers would make it that easy for us, but, I see so much hopium out there still that, it wouldn't surprise me if they do end up doing the same thing, right? At least, quite often fractals eventually break, right? Fractal patterns like this, it doesn't need to play out the exact same. However, it is a big red flag how similar this looks to last cycle. Even where the RSI was when we ended up testing our 886 level, we get that about 37 on the RSI. Whereas this time when we ended up testing that 886, the RSI is about 36, 37. So even the RSI, right? The relative strength index, the relative strength of the market is literally the exact same as last cycle with the exact same market structure. Everything just looks so similar. So again, part of me is thinking that, wow, this is easy. We are obviously going to continue a bear market just like last time. But the other side of me is thinking there's no way it could be that freaking easy, could it? So time will tell, you guys. Bitcoin dominance, I've been talking about this one a little bit recently. We still have that lower sell signal on the daily, which is great for the market as a whole, specifically altcoins. If Bitcoin dominance can end up dumping off a cliff with that signal, that would be a huge green light for altcoins, in my opinion. We're going to have to see if we just end up printing a higher buy signal, because we are above that blue resistance of the indicator already. So if we end up printing a higher buy and Bitcoin dominance starts climbing to the upside again, that would be a very bad sign for the market, in my opinion, because that would be showing that the market is not into the risk on assets, right? It's very risk off if Bitcoin, I shouldn't even say low risk asset, because it's obviously a very risky asset compared to traditional markets. But as far as crypto goes, Bitcoin is obviously the safer bet compared to some of the trash out there, right? So if we can see this end up dumping, losing this, and just nuking to the downside, I think that would be so good for the market in general. Let me know in the chat how you guys are doing. Let me know if you're in any interesting trades at this time. And again, guys, if you do appreciate my level-headed approach with these live streams, just looking at market structure for what it is, and honestly, just crushing the volatility lately. I mean, so many of these recent calls I've made have been playing out absolutely perfectly. So if you guys do appreciate that, please do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. It goes such a far way for a small channel like myself, for the algorithm and that sort of thing. And the fact that we've been crushing it, I think a lot of people out there could use some help with reading charts and just keeping things very simple, trying to simplify things. That, you know, keeping everything simple goes a very far way in the game of trading. Less things to complicate, the less chances of making a mistake, basically, right? So there's so many people out there, especially the people with the biggest followings out there, are so stuck on the fundamentals, basically, but people are and getting wrecked. And those people are basically trying to analyze the entire global economy rather than a few colorful lines. I mean, you tell me which sounds easier. If you can't analyze a chart with a few basic lines, lower lows in a downtrend, higher highs in an uptrend, if you can't figure that out, it's going to be very hard to analyze the entire global economy with every single tweet and announcement and FOMC meeting and, you know, CPI data, all that sort of stuff. You know, that is so much easier to make a mistake when analyzing compared to a few charts. And at least with charts, you have invalidations. With those fundamentals those people are throwing out there, they can hang on to that belief through an entire bear market and at the end still say, see, I told you so, this was going to play out eventually. But as actual traders, I mean, we want to trade the charts. It's so much easier. I mean, I could look for fundamentals. I could scroll through headlines for hours a day trying to make sense of everything. Or I could open a chart and within 5 seconds, I know if there's something I want to look at closer. Literally that fast. You know, if I open up a chart within 10 seconds, I would say 5 seconds, I know if I want to zoom in a little further and take a closer look. Within 10 to 15 seconds, I know if I want to take a trade. I would say within 30 seconds, I would be in a position, right? I mean, that's how I trade. Obviously, that's not for everybody. And, you know, obviously that comes with years of experience of trading and setting orders and all that sort of thing, just getting very fast with it. But, you know, that just saves so much time versus how, you know, in my earlier days of trading, when I was always listening to that hopium, I'm going to say it, that hopium bullshit out there. I listened to that for, you know, my first year and a half of trading, and I was getting wrecked. When I actually did some back testing and figured out that, hey, I can have a systematic trade strategy and I can block out all the noise and just have my entry levels, my target levels, my invalidation levels, have all those things laid out, and either the trade plays out or it doesn't. That takes all that guesswork out of it. And then even if you end up losing trades, at least they're controlled, right? It's a controlled way of trading and a lot easier to keep your emotions intact, basically. Let me catch up with the chat a little bit here. Have a quick look at Doge. I'll take a look at Doge real quick. I wasn't really going to look at altcoins today. Just because I'm going to keep this one short here, but let's take a look at Doge. Doge, I feel the same as I do with a lot of altcoins right now. Basically, it's still very possible we fill that wick from October 10th. I know a lot of people call that a scam wick. I have been saying for literally months at this point that often when you get a big wick like that, it's showing where the market is going to trend to. It is an early warning sign where the market is going to trend. And that's exactly what we've been seeing since. So at this point, I mean, we don't have to completely fill it. We could also go further than it. Right. But at this point, looking for a wick, I mean, at least we're getting close to the 786 on something like this. At least the micro trend, we did technically take out this high here. Again, this is very micro analyzing this trend, which you guys know I obviously love to do. But this would have been our last low, followed by a lower low, confirmed lower high. So we actually broke that level. So in my opinion, yeah, at least short term, that is a little bit of a bullish signal there. But that being said, guys, that's where a lot of people would instantly want to FOMO into a long position because, hey, something bullish happened. I need to go long right now because I have insane FOMO I can't control. Whereas I would be looking at something like this, looking for a pullback. And if we pull back to my support fibs, that's more so where I would be interested in getting into a position. Just because at that point, we have a much tighter invalidation, as opposed to if we were just going to YOLO long into a breakout here and invalidation still below the lows here. I'd rather be laddering into my entries down here. The one shitty thing about that is obviously if that little fib gets invalidated, we break through the 115, then we're basically at the bigger support range, right? So obviously a much larger range looking at something like this. So it would require significantly lower leverage and that sort of thing. But yeah, those are some of the levels that I'm currently looking at on Doge. See if the 5-minute has anything. Let's just remove some drawings here. Although this does look like we got rejected at a 786. No, not quite. It isn't actually a full-on STUBER fib is the thing, because this was never a high or low, because if this was our high, where was our previous high? It actually would have been back here. So our high or low on the 5-minute trend is actually down here at just below 13 cents, basically. 12.95 basically. So if anything, if I was looking for a long and I didn't want to wait for a 4-hour pullback, I'd at least be looking for the micro trend pullback, in which case I would have a fib pulled something like this, basically. Good to see so many familiar faces in here. Again, guys, thank you so much for joining me for these live streams. I appreciate that you guys come here, and so many of you guys are here every single stream that I do. Really appreciate that you guys are supporting me like this. And I hope you guys are crushing it. I hope that some of these lessons that I'm tossing out there, I hope that you're taking, some useful information from them. I hope that, you're not getting wrecked. I hope you're not only surviving these markets, but I hope you're absolutely thriving. And those of you guys in the Telegram, I hope you are, because I've been laying things out well in advance with some very nice signals recently. Any thoughts on the back and forth since December 1st? I just see a ranging. I just see I don't see anything crazy happening since December 1st. Where was December 1st? Since back here. Yeah, honestly, I don't feel anything weird about the price action. I know so many people, it's the popular opinion that this is all manipulation and that sort of thing. It is literally just Bitcoin trading in a range and everybody trying to trade into breakouts, with breakouts that aren't even necessarily proper breakouts, right? People looking at micro levels, expecting, moves to new all-time highs rather than taking profits, even if they have profits to take. But no, I don't really have many thoughts other than as soon as structure breaks, we often get that retest and continue our trend, right? Even back here, let's say this, for example, as soon as we lost that uptrend, because we had a high, slightly higher high, we lost that. We ended up just getting a retest, right? So yeah, people think that it's manipulation, but in reality, we just came back and retested my resistance. Never came close to breaking that 115, and just perfect short calling, right? So if anything, the way I feel about how the market has been playing out since December 1st, I would say very predictably. It's just that a lot of people, especially in crypto, we are, myself included, we're a bunch of degenerates compared to traditional markets. And people think that crypto has to move in one direction, like previous market cycles have done. But everybody wanted the big players to get in the space, right? Everyone celebrated that ETFs were happening. BlackRock's getting involved. Governments are getting involved. Banks are getting involved. Well, look what happens when all those larger players get involved. Everyone was so excited that, crypto was the escape from the mainstream, economy and all that sort of stuff. Yet we celebrate that the same people in controls of the main economy are now in crypto. And we were expecting them to FOMO in at all-time highs and pump our bags. That is not how smart money made their billions of dollars. They never made their billions by pumping degenerates' assets at all-time highs. If anything, if those bigger players are very bullish on crypto, they will want to accumulate as much as possible for as cheap as possible because they don't care what the price does for the next couple of days or weeks or months, literally even years. They have the backing and the patience to do what crypto degens don't, and to wait, because let's face it, most people in crypto just want to retire right now, and they don't have the time to wait for those things to play out. So yeah, it makes sense that the big players came in and are absolutely mopping the floor with the little guys, the little fish in the pond, right? So that's where systematic trade strategies and actually taking profits on the go rather than expecting a home run trade every time. I mean, it's just that Bitcoin trades sideways a lot more than it goes into full out breakouts and just moving one direction. So that's long-winded, but that's my thoughts on the price action since December. What is my conviction for an alt season? Honestly, I have no idea. This cycle is so much different than previous cycles. I mean, Trump's meme coin wiped out so much liquidity from the altcoin market and took it right out of crypto, by the way. The guy who's super bullish on crypto, I mean, when I looked up the wallet address, the day Trump coin topped out, I'll have to bring this up on some other stream, but the day Trump coin topped out, all of a sudden, his wallet accumulated, it was something like 400 million, 480 million. I can't remember what the exact numbers were, but had ended up accumulating that much Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then that left the crypto market 2 weeks later, went right into fiat. So the guy who's super bullish on crypto would not hang on to it and ditched a big chunk of it a long time ago. But not only that, I don't just want to blame one person. Also the fact that, the Solana casino getting launched and basically rug pulls happening nonstop. The fact that when I got in crypto, there was about 2,000 coins. Now there's something like over 40 million different coins. So there's just not enough liquidity in the market to pump everything to the moon. There's not enough money to do that anymore. The game has totally changed. So yeah, there's going to be some altcoins that run, but it's going to be very different compared to previous cycles. It's just impossible to play out the same now. Am I adding more positions to this new STUBER fib short setup? No, especially the fact that we're going into weekend trading and stuff. I'm happy just leaving this one run here and my bigger 4-hour one up here. I'm just letting those positions run. Also, the fact that this one hasn't fully played out yet to my second take profit, since it's not risk-free yet, I don't want to add to it, basically. And also the fact that, I say this quite often on my streams, that I only like taking these trades the first test of my resistance levels. The fact that, yeah, we're still technically at a STUBER fib setup. We are testing right below the 786 here. But understand, it would be a lot riskier now because I've already downsized my position. I closed a third of it, a third of my position, just front running the 0.5 fib. So I now have a cushion if I take a loss on the rest of my position, and the loss would be on a much smaller position size. So at this point, just from a risk management perspective, I'm just going to let it play out for now until this one's at least risk-free. I don't really like adding too many positions until they end up being risk-free. Especially, again, just going into weekend trading and that sort of thing. Yeah, the minute Jamie Dimon was lying to us, I knew that we were all going to hell. And you're right about Trump coin. That was a mess. Yeah, exactly. And again, it's not just Trump coin. I don't want to, we can't just blame everything on one thing. Everybody wanted pro crypto president. Everyone had wanted Gary Gensler out of the SEC. Everyone wanted less regulation, and then we get exactly what we begged for. And when there's no regulation, all of a sudden the altcoin market got completely fucked, to put it nicely. So, unfortunately, we got exactly what we asked for. Everyone said this market cycle was going to be different. They were right. It just happened exactly the opposite of what they thought that they meant. The ticker of Trump coin is just Trump. What was it at? I know I was shorting the hell out of this one. It was at like $50. I haven't shorted it in a long time. But yeah, not exactly a healthy looking chart. But it is what it is. I'm just excited about the volatility, you guys. I'm not here to point fingers at anybody. I'm not here to get scared. I'm not here to look for hindsight. Why did I get wrecked? All that sort of stuff. I'm here to be excited about the volatility. I'm not fearing it. I'm excited. I am thriving in these conditions lately and absolutely crushing this volatility. As a day trader like myself, I could not be more thrilled about the price action we've been having. But to each their own, obviously. Anyways, my friends, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. Just a real quick one before the weekend. Actually, it ended up running a little bit longer than I was expecting. But one last time, if you appreciate these live streams, please do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And it just, like I said earlier, it goes a long way for a smaller channel like myself. And honestly, guys, we have been crushing these markets compared to most since the downtrend began. Which we even caught. Let me go. Where is the screenies? Right here. We even caught the exact top where the downtrend started, where I went short at 125.2K. For those of you who were here with me, you guys know that I was calling for it right at the top. And ever since, I have been playing this downtrend with zero FOMO, just because of the potential things, the potential red flags in the market and that sort of thing. I just need the bulls to basically prove that they are going to start making the moves that everybody's promising for this parabolic run. And yeah, just a reminder for those of you interested in learning, seeing more examples of some of my favorite trade strategies, how I use Fibonacci's and market structure, give more of my thoughts on the market in general, do yourselves a favor and get in my Telegram by scanning the QR code on the screen or clicking the link in the description below. As I mentioned, my partners at BloFin currently giving you guys this special promo, and signing up under me also gets you future promos as well as access into my VIP Telegram channel. And with that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Thank you so much for watching once again. Have a fantastic weekend. I likely won't be streaming tomorrow because, again, Saturdays have been very lackluster in the volatility department, so I don't really see a heck of a lot happening. If it does, then I'll be here, but likely be streaming on Sunday again. So once again, thank you so much for watching. I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace. And just before I leave, Kit Bennett, would I TP again at the first target? No, my second target is at my second target. So I've already taken some profits at the first target, and that's how it's going to stand. So, all right.